know what, Jamie? Let's pop off right now. We got to get started.
We got to.
Greg Famong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uwayama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Tuesday, January 23rd, and Notre Dame just completed their big Junior Day weekend in Notre Dame at the University of Notre Dame. It was very cold. It was very snowy. Big props to Matt Freeman for being outside pretty much all day. Irish Sports Daily's Matt Freeman outside all day, getting updates, taking photos of the recruits as they arrive for the customers at Irish Sports Daily. And so we got a lot of intel on him and from Christian as well. I'm going to give those guys some flowers in just 1 second, but we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how the class is shaping up. A few news items from, just around the world of football. We're going to talk about those things. Tommy Rees looks to be moving back to the NFL. I want to get Jamie's thoughts on that. And anything else that comes up in the chat. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If this is your first time catching us, or if you've caught us a bunch and you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this channel. Please hit the notification bell so whenever it is we're going live. And please always like these videos if you like what you see. And even if you don't like what you see, like them anyway. And it helps us out. Just help us out by hitting the like on these shows. We always get a lot more people in the chat, or in a lot more viewers than we do likes. Let's switch those ratios around. Jamie, how are you doing, first of all?
I'm doing well.
Doing great. Sergio is bringing up Cam Williams. Adam Dowling brought up Cam Williams dropping 32 spots in the 247 rankings. We could talk about that as well, just because there were some big risers as well. Bryce Young moved up to a 4-star according to 247,
or a 5-star, yeah,
or a 5-star. Sorry about that. So we can talk about that. 24th overall according to their rankings. So we can talk about that as well. A lot of risers for Notre Dame. And if you want to rise up and upgrade your shirt game, then you can do that too with ESQ Clothing, which has created the world's first bamboo dress shirt, crafted from high-quality bamboo fabric. It's the softest and most comfortable shirt you'll ever put on. Not only more sustainable than cotton, also feels cooler, has stretch, is odor and wrinkle resistant, even machine washable. You've seen ESQ's one-piece collar bamboo dress shirt on all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches, and it's the perfect shirt for today's business meeting or heading for a night out. Use ISD 15 to get 15% off all online items. That's ISD 15 for 15% off. Jamie, I want to talk about something that you and Mike mentioned yesterday on Power Hour, right off top of the show. Talking about all
your Baltimore Ravens.
I'm a lifelong fan of Baltimore since 2022. You know what's funny too is I don't mind that part, like people not knowing. That's fine. I don't like being called a fence sitter, Jamie. I don't like that. I'm not a fence sitter. No, I'm nothing. Listen, when you grow up in LA, the Rams are here and then they're gone. The Raiders
there was no team, whatever.
There's no team. And you know what? I don't need to. I don't feel the need to have an allegiance. And so I was slandered a bit, not by you. Mike was a little bit slanderous, calling me out for not being a big fan of anybody. And I feel bad because during the Lions game, I thought, it'd be nice for the Lions to actually do something. There's a lot of fans like Mike out there who it would be great for them to feel some joy and some happiness, go to the NFC Championship game, and that would be great. And then I listen to the show. And
let me ask you this: Did your dad ever have a team?
No,
he never had.
My dad was a big. So little background on my dad, who is definitely watching this show. Hi, Dad. He was born in Holland, so he's Dutch, and he came over when he was 6. So his family has no real roots in the United States or anything like that. And he was the youngest of 6 kids. So he was 6, but a lot of the kids were older than that. He was a big UCLA basketball guy. Loved John Wooden, loved that whole thing. So he was a basketball guy. And so that was his deal. All of my football stuff comes from just organically being around, just picking up Notre Dame on my own. So he didn't have anything. So I never had a pull towards any team or anything like that. So, look, Kyle Hamilton's my guy. Everyone knows that, specifically because he's a great football player. And so that's why I was just like, whatever team he goes to, that's the team I'm going to follow. I'm not going to pretend like it's a bit that I say, it's a bit for me to be like, I'm a lifelong fan. I'm obviously not. But I'm rooting for the Ravens, as makes sense. Right. So, but look, congratulations to the Lions. It's going to be a good weekend of football. Let's talk a little bit about the 247 rankings, the updates, right? So we've had some updates. Kingston Viliamo Asa has really risen in the rankings over the last month or so. I think he's a 5-star on Rivals now. He's close to that on 247. He got a bump. Bryce Young's had a huge bump in the last 2-3 months. Just people are really starting to see like his upside and his intangibles and his, all the things that make someone a really good defensive end. So he's really jumped up there. I think CJ Carr dropped a bit, like maybe 7 spots. And Cam Williams dropped a good amount. I think he got hurt. He didn't show out very well in All-Star games. And when you go to an All-Star game, you don't really show out. You're going to drop in the rankings. It's not that big of a deal, but what's your take on that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, congrats to it's a cool honor for Bryce Young to be bumped up to 5-star. That's awesome, great for him, right? Like that's a cool honor for that to happen to him. But the difference between someone who's 24th and the 50th or the 60th, it's very small. It really isn't that big of a deal in terms of what it means for your overall projection going forward. It doesn't. There's there's a difference between, which is why I always think the 5-star thing is really kind of dumb because they pick 32 5-stars. Well, it's NFL teams, they give out first round grades to people, but it's not like they give 32 first round grades to everybody. They might only give some years they might give 17, some years they might give 28, whatever. Right. It's different depending on how many guys that they believe are that grade. But obviously it's media driven. It's a media industry. It's to draw interest.
Yeah.
So, it's different, just like how the 24th guy one year is going to be different than the 24th guy the next year. And I would say, with Cam Williams dropping, I really don't think it's that big of a deal. Who cares if he's 80th? Who cares if he's top 50? Who cares if he's a 5-star, whatever? Because the work starts now anyways, right? The work starts now, and it doesn't change his ceiling of what he can be as a player. And it's something that we've talked about for a long time, that he needs to develop as a receiver. He is an incredible athlete that he needs to develop as a receiver. And that's what it's going to be all about. And it's about taking that and having that translate to Notre Dame. And frankly, too, with most receivers, very few guys are day one, dominators. That just doesn't happen. There's at Notre Dame, it's been Michael Floyd and nobody, right? It's just, that's not even something that you can think about. I mean, I guess you could probably say before Michael Floyd was the Rocket, and Rocket obviously wasn't a receiver. He was more of just a gadget, jack of all trades guy back then, but still, you just don't find many guys like that. And that's everywhere, right? It's go back to look at that loaded Alabama, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, all of those guys as freshmen. And I know Devontae Smith caught the touchdown to end the thing. Look at his stats for the year. That was the big play and not a lot else. I think he might have had 8 catches on the year. That's just kind of where it's at. And it's about, it's a marathon, not a sprint for everything, but specifically for wide receiver. So, I mean, I don't get too caught up in that, even though I'm going to have to put out, I was planning on getting updating the final ISD 550. And I do take it seriously. I don't want to say that I don't, because I do take, grading these guys seriously. And I want to, try to be fair and be as correct as possible with all of these guys. But I just think that it's one of those things where rankings and 5-star and 4 stars and all that, it's like it's totally somebody decided whenever they started rivals.com, which I think was the first to do the star system. Somebody decided that was the way. And it made Rivals 100 and then Rivals 250 and then now this 247. It's like, well, what about the 260th guy? The difference between the 260th guy and being in the 240, it means nothing. You know what I mean? Like it's less than nothing, right? And it's just, but it's a thing that I guess matters to a lot of people. Like I always see, which is not to hate on whoever runs social for On3, but On3 I always see it's like, well, he was ranked in the top 220, whatever, and I'm like, why just pick 220? Why not just say whatever your thing is, whatever?
Yeah,
you got to make sure because he was 217th, so we got to do 220. It's just like, just say he was a 4-star, man.
Yeah,
like it's fine. You don't have to do with all this. It doesn't ultimately, that kind of thing doesn't matter. It matters more of like how they project and how do you categorize them of when they're going to project later.
Yeah, like he's 80 something. Like Cam Williams is 80 something now. He was 40 something. Like he basically, everything about him is still true, right? He's still explosive. Yeah. He's still dangerous with the ball in his hands. Still get over the top of everybody. They liked other people at a camp.
They liked other guys better.
Yeah, so they just put him up there. So it's not a big deal. Still a big coup. And look, Bryce Young, kind of the same thing, right? Like everything that you said about him when he was a 3-star is still the case now that he's a 5-star, right? He still has those traits. He still is long. He still is a good athlete. He still has good burst and all those things. So it's just like whether they call him a 5-star or whether they call him a 3-star, same guy. Hopefully Notre Dame got a really good prospect there. I want to thank Dan Blair for this super sticker. Thank you very much, Dan, for that. We really appreciate that very, very much. If you had a question attached to that, please put it in the chat and we'll put it up here for you guys.
Well, I think Greg got cut off there. I don't know what happened there. Well, I'll just reiterate. Thanks so much for Dan. That's so generous of you. That's amazing. Well, there you go. All
right, Jamie. So sometimes if I'm scrolling and I click it wrong, I exit from the show.
Okay.
That happens a little too often. I need a mouse.
I'm surprised I haven't done that more.
Yeah.
I'm closing tabs all the time.
All right. So let's get back to it. Some questions about Dallas Golden. So before I get to the updates on the 2025 guys, I got to give so much credit to Matt and Christian. These guys are so locked into these guys. They are just like, I take for granted that Christian and Matt are just like, as soon as they're off campus, they're talking to them and they're going to have a story. Like they're so good at that. I don't know how they do it, especially Christian. He is like stealthy. Like Christian is a stealth, like behind the scenes, knows everyone, talks to everyone, and has really good relationships with everybody. So they give Irish Sports Daily customers like really good information, stories out right away from the players who are on campus. Really good stuff. So I want to give those guys their flowers and their credit because they do a great job for Irish Sports Daily and the people who subscribe to our site. So good job.
No one does better on the junior days. I can say that and whatever. And with all due respect to, because I really do honestly respect all the other guys that are on the ND, recruiting beat and the effort they put in. But I really I think if you look at it, no one does a better job after junior days, getting the updates the quickest. They're the best at it in my opinion. I don't even think it's my opinion. You could just look for yourself. I think it's fact.
Yeah, so those guys do awesome. So good job by them. Matt McCarthy is asking, is Dallas Golden being recruited strictly as a corner? He could play safety or potentially even on offense. He's saying corner. So in the story that Christian wrote, he was saying corner, but he also mentioned like they are talking to him about position versatility and being able to play all over the place, right? And Jacob Paulus is making reference to a crystal ball that went up. Matt had an update that he said he felt good he felt when Notre Dame stood for him, right? They feel like Notre Dame's in a really good spot. And so that carries a lot of weight with me, a good amount of weight, actually. So it's like, they could use him all over the place. I kind of agree with Jamie. If you're going to play him on defense, I prefer he played safety. Just because someone like him, you want him, A, around the ball as much as possible, and B, you want him in a position of leadership, in a position of influence with the other members of the team, because he's that kind of personality and he's that kind of football player. It's very similar to Kyron. Like I talk about that. I think I talked about on the last show. Like they have that same kind of energy to their games. And he's the kind of guy like I want in the middle of the defense, right? I want him communicating with the linebackers, and I want him communicating with the corners and getting everyone set up, because I think he's that kind of an athlete. And so I would prefer him there. I do think he could play on offense, right? Like if Notre Dame got like Mark Zachary and Creed Thomas, and then they pulled Devin Williams, you don't need a fourth corner that's Dallas Golden. You can move him somewhere else. You can move him to offense, especially if their receiver situation isn't kind of where they want it to be. And that's something we're going to talk about a little bit later, because I am curious about the upside of where they are at receiver right now. Like aside from Tylan Taylor, right? Like I feel like he's separate, but I don't know where Notre Dame specifically stands with him. And wherever they stand with him now, like there's a long way to go there. And so I think things are less clear at receiver. But I am curious about that. But what do you like? Do you think if Notre Dame was to hit on Mark Zachary, who also had a very good visit, and things look very good for him at the moment right now? I think some people are talking about commitment. I don't think that doesn't appear to be imminent right now. That's going to be a little bit closer to the season. But if they were to end up with Zachary, and they were to end up with Creed Thomas, who's already in fold, and then you pull someone like Devin Williams, like, do you need a fourth corner in Dallas Golden there? Could you move him around? Could you change his position to either safety or look him in on offense?
I mean, I think you could. And I mean, he certainly has the talent to do that. But I also think that Creed Thomas might end up as safety too, right? So that's the other thing. So I guess it just depends how they view that and where they kind of feel about that situation. But I also think that getting someone like Golden, definitely could play corner, and getting like him and say like Ivan Taylor, who's they obviously have committed in the class already too. Mm-hmm. Those guys are safeties. Like, if Golden was a safety, you could play those guys as safeties, but they have corner skills. Like they could man cover. You could go there and say, oh, you can take this slot and you can handle him. Like, and to have that is a huge luxury and allows you to open up so many different things about what you want to do in terms of matching personnel on defense, in terms of, scheme and how you want to run things. Right. And so I do think that, Golden is just, that versatility is valuable no matter where he ends up at Notre Dame. So if he were to choose Notre Dame, so I just think it's just one of those things where, and when you get to the point where if you're doing well enough with all of these guys and they're just so good, it's like kind of like with the offensive line where I think we're going to take 3, but it's like, if the fourth guy is really that good and you really, really like him, you can take a fourth. Like, it's just, I feel the same way about corner.
Yeah. And the thing about corner too, is like you just mentioned, there are so many positions in the secondary where you're asked to cover people like man to man. Like Xavier Watts is in man coverage a lot last year, and he's their free safety guy. Like he is their one guy who it's like, we want him deep middle. And yet that he's in man coverage a lot in the slot. And so that kind of position versatility and having that kind of a skill set is like really important. It's like you said, Creed Thomas, he could play safety too, even though they're looking at him at corner, right? Because they all have pretty good size there, especially Dallas Golden. Like Mark Zachary, corner, right? Devin Williams, corner. Devin Williams could play safety, but like put him at corner. Like that's his spot, right? Especially you put him at nickel. But like those other guys, like I feel like they do have the size to be moved around a little bit. Look, it'd be awesome if Notre Dame had this problem that they had to deal with, right? And where to play these types of players because they are so they're so talented, right? Ethan Long could go into a linebacker. I don't know. I wouldn't want him carrying linebacker weight. That doesn't seem like
It's one of those things where also too, like where with Kennedy, like Kennedy Urlacher, like literally that was all people were just like, well, remember his dad played safety. Whenever, well, his dad was 240 pounds playing safety in college, right? So it's like they're built a little bit different. So and as we saw, Matt posted some measurements on the thing, and whatever. I would caution everyone not to overreact too much to all these measurements and stuff early, especially guys just enrolling early at this time. But he's 5'11", so I mean 5'11" doesn't suggest like, man, this guy's going to be walking around 240 like his dad. Like Brian Urlacher, what was he, 6'3" or whatever? Like,
he's big guy,
like
big guy.
Yeah, so it's different, right? It's different. Like where you're saying like Bryce Young, I don't know if he is 6'7", but they listed him as 6'7", and you're like, oh jeez, like and he still might be growing, right? Like it just depends with different guys, right? Like different guys, it hits different. Like where Jason Onye is another perfect example of like a guy who was like, when I believe when he committed, he was like 230 something. And you're like, man, this guy's got a bigger frame and whatever. And then all of a sudden, like a year later, he's walking around like, mid 280s, right? Like it's just different.
Yeah. Other guys that Notre Dame is done well with over the weekend was Damian Shanklin, defensive end from Indiana. That's one where it's like, I think you start to push right there. I think they're on the brink with him. I think he likes Notre Dame, and I think they have a good feel for him. I think he had a good time. So that's one that I think you can kind of start to push and just like, hey, let's get him in the class, like right, as soon as possible. Obviously, if to the player's comfort, right? But I think you want to make a move there. Jack Lang is another one, offensive lineman. I know you're pretty excited about him as a prospect, Jamie, and Owen Strebig as well. Tell me about Jack Lang, what you hear about Jack Lang, and then how he kind of fits into the offensive line class.
Yeah, obviously he's another guy who's a monster, right? Like he's 6'8",
Yeah.
and just a gigantic frame, but plays like with outstanding leverage. He plays with good bend and just natural knee bend. And he's just got violent hip snap off the ball. Like he's the guy who just really, you can see like the violence when he is blocking someone in the run game. And I think when you see that at a young age, that jumps out because that's something that is going to carry over, right? And especially as he gets only bigger and stronger, like, whoa, like look out, right? And I think obviously the way he moves too, he has all like the tools to be a guy who's very good in pass pro too, even though you don't see a ton of pass pro with him. But I just really think that you get a guy like him who is, he's severely underrated right now in terms of his ranking. And I'm just, whatever, all the 2025 ranking stuff is going to get updated for all those other people too, to any people to kind of overreact to rankings right now. That stuff is all going to, change drastically over the next year. But like, he's going to be going up. He's going to be a top 100 guy for sure. And then I think like Will Black to me is a top 100 guy too. So he can add those two guys. And obviously Strebig is in that kind of like conversation and that level too. Like, man, that's just a great class if you can do that. And really too, I think Matty Augustine, the only thing is Matty Augustine just has to like put on the weight, but how he moves and just his frame, he's a big dude. And like he's going to be a monster. So I just think that Notre Dame has landed a bunch of guys. I just think it's, or they're in on a bunch of guys. They're targeting a bunch of guys that right there that if you were going to take 3, and if you land 3 of those 4, wow, great class.
Yeah.
But if you can pull all 4, you kind of got to take them all, I think.
Yeah. Let me find the question here. Matt McCarthy asked the question, are you concerned that they aren't bringing in more pure defensive tackles? They haven't brought in many over the last few classes. So Sean Civillano is one. But as he says, not that many, right? Whatever you want to say about what happened with Owen Wafel, not in the class, right? And he's someone that could have been a pure defensive tackle. Are you concerned that there aren't more on that they're looking at?
No, not when you look at, say, like what the 2023 class is, because Armel Mukam is a defensive tackle now. Like I think that is very obvious, right? Like he's like, 285 pounds or whatever he is right now. Like the guy's going to be like 295-ish, 3-tech. Like he's, you have him, you have Devin Houston, who is definitely a defensive tackle. And I think Brandon Vernon is probably a 3-tech. And that's kind of where they were like kind of working him in towards. So if you got 3 defensive tackles in that class, and then, with Saviano, like you're still in a good spot. And you got to remember too, in terms of, when obviously they got Dixon already in this class too, who, as that's someone too, like as Matt was able to kind of see him up close, and obviously people saw the pictures with him and Howard Cross and Riley Mills too. He's a bigger dude than I think a lot of people realize. So the one thing with defensive tackle now, kind of like in linebackers too, you don't really want to put too many scholarships on it, because for the most part, defensive tackles are 2-down players. They're not like, most of those guys aren't playing on 3rd down, right? So, and especially when you have like a Howard Cross, like Riley Mills doesn't even get to play on 3rd down, and he's a pretty good pass rusher. Like he's got, definitely he's a plus pass rusher. So he doesn't even get to play on 3rd down. And you look at it, and that also, because of that takes away, that's part of the reason why you don't see so many snaps for like guys like Rubio and Anye, because I know Rubio was hurt for a good chunk of the year too, but like you don't see it with them because you only play one defensive tackle on 3rd down. So, and you're playing like, even when Notre Dame was playing, they only played one edge on 3rd down last year. Like like at the end of the year, they had Snead and Maris Leoval, right? So it's because of that, it's like one of those things where, obviously you're going to need an X amount of defensive tackles, just like you need X amount of inside linebackers. But the way the game is played and how many teams that you have to face that are going to play that style of like 12 personnel, but like real 12 personnel, like Michigan, like one of the reasons why Michigan is tough to play for all these teams is because it's like, well, nobody else plays like Michigan except for like Notre Dame, basically, right? Like, and maybe Georgia, right? And Georgia, right? Like that's it. So it's just where the direction of where the game is going and kind of what you're doing. And since you only have 85 scholarships, you don't need more than 8 defensive tackles on your roster or however many, like, because like, unless you want to change it and be like, okay, we're going to be more of like a 3-down team, and you want to have like be Georgia with like Hosses across the board, then that's different.
Yeah. Michael in the chat's making some points about the Ethan Long and why he brought that up. And I feel you. It's just that he's not as tall as his listing, for one. And so he just doesn't seem like the type of guy. It's like, like he'll add some weight and kind of maintain. Like Rizak is a good example of someone where it's like, man, he is long and he's tall, and he seems like a guy who could carry like 215, 220, like a lot better than Ethan Long. And so like, he's a guy that I would look at and kind of in that mold. The Holtz type athlete that you're referencing here, Michael. So that's a good point there. I just think it's not the right player to bring that up. Tyler Borgman, do you want to try to I guess rank the O-line like 1 to 4? Just in terms of like maybe not like how you project them. Maybe not right now, but how you kind of project those guys.
To me, I would put Black, then Lang, then Strebig, then Augustine is how I would do it.
Okay. All right. That's a fair deal. Let's talk about the wide receivers a little bit, Jamie. On campus was Elijah Burris, Plaxico Burris' son. Jerome Bettis Jr. was on campus, very famously, Jerome Bettis' son, and Sean Terry from Ohio. He was on campus. I want to talk to you about Sean Terry first because I watched his film last week and I sent Matt a message. I was like, I like his film kind of a lot, actually. And he was like, the size thing is kind of the thing that's got the big question about him. And I guess last year he ran some sort of like
He ran like a 4.8 at a camp last year or something like that. Yeah.
as a sophomore.
Yeah.
Right. So my suspicion is that the flurry of offers that he's been getting is somewhere someone has decided that he is not a 4.8 guy. He's not.
I mean, he's definitely not a 4.8 guy if you watch the film.
Right. Like that's my kind of like, that was my impression. Like,
Pretty obvious.
I wouldn't be like texting Matt being like, hey, I like him. And I thought he was slow. Right. Like that's not a thing. I mean, look at his run after catch ability is special. I mean, he's great. He's just really good. I mean, he's great after the catch. And you know, I understand he maybe doesn't play at the highest level in Ohio, but still, like, that's a special ability. And like Jacob Paulus says, Terry looks much faster on film than his reported times. I think the other schools have vetted his speed out, and so that's why he's getting some offers. And B, the size. It must be somewhere where it must be something where that they've decided he's fast enough or he's bigger than is reported. I don't know, but these enough schools are after him, so it's like there's a mitigating factor there. So what do you think about him? He didn't have an offer coming in. Sorry, I asked you a question, then I started talking again, but I just want to make the point. He didn't have an offer coming in, and then within like, I don't know, a couple hours, he reported an offer. So they saw something that they liked in that time. So what do you think about him?
First of all, I mean, I really liked his film too, right? My big question for him is size, right? That's the one thing, because you know that's kind of like it's like any kind of thing too, where you're like, man, he's got to be a slot, and that's it. Like, he only fits this one specific thing, and that's it. That's always tough for me, right? Because I'm always like, okay, that would be my one thing, because there's a million CJ Sanders out there. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously CJ Sanders, he earned his scholarship. You know what I mean? Like, he was a very good returner, right? A very good returner. And you know, I think even though he didn't live up and become this like ultra dangerous, you know, explosive slot player, he more than earned his scholarship at Notre Dame while he played for Notre Dame, you know, but obviously there were limitations to him on offense, right? And I think, but there's a lot of guys like him, the small, jittery type guys, and believe me too, because I've been to, you know, multiple, you know, when they used to have the opening, multiple times at the opening, they would have, you know, all these guys, and those guys light up 7-on-7, right? It's like the slots are the most valuable guys in these 7-on-7 tournaments, and those guys would light it up. But if you go back and look at some of the guys who lit it up at a lot of these openings and who light it up in a lot of these 7-on-7 stuff, there's very few Tyreek kills out there, is what I'd say. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's very few Tyreek kills and Jalen Waddles out there. There just isn't, right? Like, even a guy like as, you know, who's the guy, the Louisville kid, who plays for the Rams right now?
Kyle covered him.
Yes,
very famously. Shoot, this bothers me now.
Anyways, the guy could fly, right? He could fly. And he was a great player.
Tutu Atwell.
Yeah, right. Which obviously, like, you know, that's the kind of thing where you're thinking, man, if you could get like a Tutu Atwell, like, heck yeah, who wouldn't want that, right? Mm-hmm. So that would be that's my like kind of misgivings. That's a caveat with them. But in saying that, so I don't think you should offer a bunch of Smurfs, you know, but if you're going to offer one of those guys and you're going to say one of them, I mean, he seems like a pretty good one, because I just think it's the after the catch part. It's the part where you can throw this guy a bubble and he turns a 2-yard gain into 8, or maybe he turns a 2-yard gain into 48, because of that. And that's why I think too, like, and I don't have like a super high grade on him, and it's because of all those other things that I mentioned, but I still think it's kind of like Jordan Faison, and probably why Jordan Faison was a walk-on football player and not whatever, but because there's no way that I didn't go back and watch like a ton of Jordan Faison high school film, but I guarantee if you watch his high school film, if he's doing this kind of stuff that he was doing in the games here at the end of the thing, and he was doing what he's doing in practice, then I bet he's got a pretty electric huddle highlight film, right? So, but why didn't he do it? Well, he's tiny. He's very tiny, right? Yeah. So it's just, but some guys just have that extra. And I mean, Jordan Faison might play in the NFL, and just because he might be that exception. And so I think because of that, I do like it. And obviously Mike Brown has had success with smaller, speedier guys, like Tyler Scott from Cincinnati.
Yeah. What really, like, the thing is, the thing that like kind of just, I don't know if it like tricked me about Sean Terry's tape is I don't know if they have a drone or what they have. They have a very like high, like it's awesome. It's you can see the full width. Like I want to get, because there are so many players where it's like, this is a top Division I player, and it's like I feel like you have a parent in the stands, like filming on like a camcorder. It's like you can never follow the play. It's like, can you guys please get some like good, a proper setup? Like these are good, you're good football players. Like you need to showcase them. Sean Terry, good job by his outfit over there. They do an excellent job of showcasing their player. You could actually, like, it truly highlights how good of a lateral player he is, like moving sideline to sideline and working in space and finding space to create plays on the run. He understands the importance of good video, and you should as well. And if you need one for your web page or for your social media page or for your small business, the small business website, and you can go over to VSRmediaCompany.com, which is founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy Award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior and sports photos. Contact them at VSRmediaCompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. Okay. Tylan Taylor. What do you think Notre Dame's chances are of him landing him?
I mean, I would have to say pretty decent if he's like missing a wedding to come to a junior.
He went to the reception, Jamie.
He went to the reception, but I mean, I think anytime someone does something like that, it shows their genuine interest in Notre Dame, and obviously it's close, so it's not like, it's not like he was
he was able to drive back to attend.
He was able to drive back, yeah. So, but still, and I think that's something that, is a big deal. I mean, I don't know. I'm not privy to exactly like how, well they're doing in terms of like all these other comparatively to like, I know like Michigan was at the school that he was really interested in, but it's like, I mean, Michigan, things are going to change there. How much is that going to impact anything? Who knows? Because I think Sharon Moore is probably going to be the next head coach. And I don't know, maybe he's got a great relationship with Sharon Moore. I don't know. But so who knows, exactly his, where he's at with everything. But I have to think that he's like, at the very least, Notre Dame is a very strong contender for him. And I do feel like at the same kind of time, he is raw as a receiver, much like Cam Williams in a lot of ways too. But I just think he's another guy who is great after the catch, just really great after the catch. And he's got like, there are flashes of just some ridiculous ball skills too that I think, kind of really stand out. So I just think raw ability, he's the kind of guy that when you get a guy like that, who's from Illinois, a local guy that you can say, hey, pop in for the weekend, that's always big. And I just always thought too, like, if you look at, say, like Tyler Morris, who's a guy who was making plays for Michigan in the playoff, right? Like Tyler Morris is a good prospect. I know he tore his ACL and then, people backed off him or whatever, but like the guy's a heck of a ball player. And like, that's a guy that I wish Notre Dame had. Right. And so, when a guy like that is in your local area, he's got to be a priority.
Do you like Tylan Taylor better than Cam Williams? Question from Jacob Paulus. No,
I don't, but I think I would put him in the same kind of category as him, though, as a prospect. Like, I'd say I'd probably lean towards Cam Williams, but I would, I think Taylor, if you're talking about just like pure, ceiling and potential of what he could be, you're like, wow, this guy could be one of the like more, explosive playmakers for a top tier team. Like, I put him in that category. I really do think he has that kind of potential.
Joe Bro says you got to get the local kids. Agree with that. You do. I mean, you do. Like, and I think Marcus Freeman wants to do that, right? Like, he's been very into Chicago lately, in Illinois, and just like wanting to shore up the kind of the local connection there. Let's have the Jerome Bettis Jr. conversation. So, regardless of how good I think he is, or you think he is, or whatever, I do like basically all of these guys ahead of him. So, and I think you mentioned it on Power Hour yesterday. Like, if you take him in the class, then fine, right? It's not like he's not terrible. He's not. You're not wasting a scholarship, I don't think. But I think you do need to take 4 then, right? Like you said. Like, yeah. I think you need to take other guys. I don't think he can be a 3rd. I think he can be a 4th there. And like Christian made the point, like he reported a Georgia State offer, like over the weekend, right? Like Georgia State's looking at him, right? Whereas Sean Terry has legit, I mean, like Ohio State's looking at him, and
I will say just some Georgia State guys have transferred. That'll be pretty good though. They do seem to be pretty good, whatever. But yes,
you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
right. So and again, it's not that I'm saying he's bad. I'm just saying like that's where he's kind of at, and the film matches that too. Yeah. Right. Sometimes the film doesn't match the offer list. And I think in this case it does. So I think they do need to take other people, and they need to get like, okay, if he's a 3rd, then maybe you do think about Dallas Golden being a wide receiver, like something like that, where if chips fall another kind of way, then you go and do that.
Okay. The way that I would put it, and I know too that like, I think too, some people are being overly ridiculous about it, but like the way that I would put it is he's not in. Remember the one year that Notre Dame took Ronnie Palace Jr., right? And
yeah.
You know what? Like, I think everybody knew what that was about. Like, this guy's going to be on the scout team.
No one even knew. Like, on the day, it was like, is he even on scholarship?
They sneaked it in, probably because they didn't want to get any kind of backlash for it at the time. And I mean, and it was, frankly, it was ridiculous. But so I just want to make it clear, he is far above that. He is far above that. So I don't want it. I don't even want to say that he couldn't be like a good player at Notre Dame, because I think that is in the realm of possibility. But I also think that, like, if we're just talking about just straight up where he is comparatively to the other guys that they've offered, you'd put him at the bottom of there. So from that perspective, that's why I think you take 3 and him if that's what you're doing, because we've also seen it a million times with Notre Dame, and this is something that has happened where they've taken us specifically at receiver. And I know you shouldn't be like, thinking about all the mistakes of the past that happened way before, Marcus Freeman was there. But how many times has Notre Dame taken, like, we're only taking 2 wide receivers? Well, all of a sudden, one of those guys doesn't hurt, and then that other guy better hit, because if he doesn't, then that's a whole wasted class. Or if it's like, all of a sudden they, the Jordan Johnson year, right? Which was like they took Jordan Johnson, X Watts, X Watts, and Jay Brunel, right? And I'm not even saying it was a mistake to take Jay Brunel, and obviously his stuff, he had like a lot of mental health stuff that was going on with him, and there's a reason why he ended up transferring, whatever, right? But just in terms of, and where he projected as a player, if he was the 4th guy, then I think it's different. But because he was going to be the 3rd guy in that class, and then even with X Watts, you were like, is he a DB? Is he a receiver? Whatever. And all of a sudden, Jordan Johnson doesn't hit, and X Watts moves, and it's like, well, that class was a wash, right? So that's how it can go so fast. So it's like that's why who you take and how many you take, that has to play into all of this. It does.
Vision Poet's asking, does he compare to Corey Robinson at the same age? I think Robinson was different because of the size. Like he was so big, and like the size piece is just like you can't. It's just like that's such a differentiator for a player. Like you automatically have like a different utility on a football team because you're tall, right? And Jerome Bettis Jr. doesn't have that, right? So again, I don't mind. Like to me, I view it kind of similar to like Kennedy Urlacher, right? Like he just can't be the like Kennedy Urlacher. Get him in the program 100%, like no problem. But like you can't be like, okay, you also need Tay Johnson kind of thing, right? Like you do need to get him.
Oh,
you
yeah.
need someone who's going to be playing in the back there, and he's going to be that guy, right? So it's just like I do think you need to get those other guys, and you don't know how someone is going to like, look, we don't know what a senior film is going to look like. We don't know how someone reacts to getting into a college campus, into a college developmental program, right? And the good thing about him is like you could see him developing, right? And it is good to bring in guys where it's like, hey, we know that they're going to be okay to be developed, right? Because a lot of the time you bring in 3 and 2 of the look at this last class right now. Like Rico Flores, Braylon James. Like they brought in how many receivers, and you don't count. Honestly, I wouldn't even count Jordan Faison in this because they didn't plan on him being anything, right? He walked on. It's not like they recruited him. So it's just like Rico Flores and Braylon James, like 2 of their highly rated players. One plays a ton, one doesn't play at all. Now they're gone. Not even on the roster.
And if they didn't have Jordan Faison, think of where that would be.
Exactly.
Right?
It would just be Jaden Greathouse right now. And so
and KK Smith.
And KK Smith. But that's another one, right? Where it's
like
he got hurt. We don't know anything about that situation.
Yeah.
So they brought in 4 there, and right now you have 1 that you know about. 2 are gone, and one has been injured and hasn't played yet. So it's just like there is utility in bringing in a player where it's like, hey, he's going to be around and he's going to try and is willing to be developed at our program, and who knows where it could go, right? So I do think there's utility in that. Someone brought up the fact that he's ranked around the same as Jaden Thomas. Rajon Bettis is saying on 247 he's ranked about the same as Jaden Thomas. To me, it's like I like Jaden Thomas a lot more.
I mean, I think Jaden Thomas had a higher ranking than him. I can't recall what it was. I mean, he was a 4-star. He ended up being a 4-star. First of all, Bettis is like a high 3-star kid, which just means he's a Power 5 player. He is a Power 5 player, in my opinion, right? Like it's just that if we're talking about like a guy, you have to look at it from all perspectives of like, well, can this guy start at Notre Dame and can be a high level player at Notre Dame? And that's how, first of all, of kind of where you got to see it. And it's like, well, I think the answer with Bettis would be like possibly, but X and X and X have to happen, right?
Yeah.
So with some of these other guys, there's only like XX has to happen or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's how you got to view it differently.
Yeah. The kind of the tricky part too is like, so Michael says, give me Taylor, Meadows, Burris, and Bettis, and I'd be thrilled. Like, what if it was Taylor, Meadows, and Burris, and like Sean Terry wants in too, right? You know, like that's where it's like, you should probably take Sean Terry, you know, that's kind of the situation you get into. But like that's a long way down the line. And that has to be figured out there. It's funny, Jamie, on the preview show, we didn't bring up Owusu Boateng, Nathaniel Boateng. And we didn't bring him up on that because we weren't sure if he was going to visit yet.
Yeah.
It wasn't confirmed yet, and now we haven't. We're 50 minutes into this. We haven't brought him up. Dude is unbelievable. He's a great player. It's one of those things like I almost don't even want to talk about it because then it's like you start to dream big dreams of what he could be in this class. And look, it was his first time ever visiting, right? So it's just an introduction to the program. Are you interested? It seems like he is interested. He did like it, and they're gonna have to get him on campus again in order for it to be a real possibility. But we were kind of talking before the show, like if you get guys like Dallas Golden and the O-line class that they're looking at, and Mark Zachary and Devin Williams, and then a guy like Owusu Boateng, like if you get those guys, like
it changes everything of how people view the class. Right?
Exactly. So tell me about him, what he could do, what he could be, how he kind of fits.
Yeah, well, I think he's pretty similar to his older brother, except for he's just bigger, right? Like and obviously, like it's one of those things where it's like he has a higher ranking, and it's primary. I mean, some of that is because of his brother, right? And some of that is because of just his size and all that too. But like he's a heck of a ball player. Like he's a space backer who is physical, makes super athletic plays in space, and adds explosive athleticism. So kind of everything you want in a modern day linebacker, like his brother, just bigger, right? So that's the thing is why he's one of the top linebackers in the class. And I think you should also you also got to acknowledge how it was already like a good junior day list. It was a good junior day list. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, Notre Dame got Owusu Boateng and Jalen Taylor and slid them in the last minute.
It was like the day before. Yeah.
Like the just Thursday got Friday, so like that is big, right? And I think too, if you think about like it's all like getting that too, because like you said, it lays the groundwork for what it could be. Because I wanted you to say like a year ago, and I think we were saying, and like I definitely like I know that talking to Matt, they were like they felt they had a real shot at KVA, at Kingston Villiamoasa, right? They had a real shot, but there were nobody picking Notre Dame for him at the time. Like they were like, they're not the leader, they're not the whatever. So this is kind of like where you got to kind of win now to get in that spot, because that is the kind of thing like those difference maker type of guys. That's what makes or break the class, really, right? Because some of those guys, yes, you are going to find the Julian Love, who just like ends up being just way better than anyone could have possibly projected. And you're going to find even like a Ben Morrison, who was obviously, he was a 4-star kid, but he wasn't projected to be like freshman All-American, best cornerback in the country type of that. Probably going to be a top 15 pick next year. Wasn't anything like that. Same with Joel. Yes. So you got to have that. But it's like when you get that and then you get the other top guys too, that's how you win championships, right? Because you have enough of those difference makers. It's why Ohio State is paying all this money to try to buy a championship to get more difference makers on their team, right? So I just really just think that it would just be just absolutely massive to get this kind of guy in the class, because it's just because you look at it and then all of a sudden 2 years down the road, 2 or 3 years down the road, him and KVA could be on the field together. And then you say, oh, wow, like this is where we're at. Right. And it's just, that's how it all equals. Just like how you say, like, wow, Boubacar, like people are really, truthfully excited about, Boubacar and his upside and what he can be. And maybe this guy, he might even be a first round pick one day. That's the kind of talent and kind of ceiling he has as a pass rusher. And then you think, wow, well, they got Bryce Young in the next class. Oh, think about these guys together in a couple of years, rushing on third, and all of these kind of things. And that's how you build a champion, and you stack them up like over and over again. And I think that's, to me, the most probably exciting thing. It's like he doesn't have to be the start of something. He just becomes and just keeps adding on to something. Yeah.
And like there's just really the potential here, especially on defense in the back, or the back seven with the potential of Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, and then those corners and those secondary guys. Like that could be truly special, like top of the sport kind of class. Like I don't think there would be anything like, there's no real comparison in the modern Notre Dame recruiting. Like those, I really do think that, I think Devin Williams and Dallas Golden, especially, I think Mark Zachary is just a peg below them, not too much below them, but I just think that group would just be incredible. And with Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, and you make a good point. At this time last year, KVA's names popping up, I just thought, no way. No way. I don't I understand. Sure, they're poking around there. He's a Bosco guy. He likes Ohio State. He's just not going to Notre Dame. And then here, he's on campus right now. So it is. I do feel like it is a little bit more possible than normal. Obviously, he gets to campus, and it goes well. And look, it was snowing too. And the fact is, what? Obviously, you would like for a better weather situation, but at the same time, you do kind of feel like, who's about it? Who's about it?
Yeah.
Like Tyler Taylor. The fact that you're driving back and forth in that situation is that shows something. It does. It truly does. And especially when you juxtapose like Justin Scott last year. I'm not coming because I got to work, right? And look, fine, you can keep your commitment at work at Starbucks or whatever it is. That's good too. But at the same time, you move stuff around when you want to do something, right? As a high school player, those guys have done it, and so there they are, right? Anything.
Anybody ever seen a 300-pound defensive tackle work at Starbucks? Never seen it. Whatever. I can't even imagine going to my local Starbucks and being a 300-pound defensive tackle. I think it's just a lot of it too is, first of all, anyone who has traveled to South Bend, Indiana, knows you got to really want to go to get there.
Yeah.
They don't make it easy.
They don't
make it easy. Even you can say, oh, it's only, a couple hours away from Chicago. Have you driven in Chicago traffic? Have you taken the train? The train's not bad, but it's doesn't come all the time. It's every few hours. Oh, if you missed it this one spot, you got to wait another 3 hours. It's not an easy thing. And to fly into South Bend, there aren't a lot of direct flights in the South Bend. So it's hard. And if you got to drive into it, it's not the most beautiful drive-in. All this stuff. The campus is beautiful, but it's not the most beautiful drive-in. So you got to really, really want to go and be really interested. So
God really wants to go because he's going tomorrow. So he's going to be on campus.
He's got business there. He's got business. He's not the right guy to ask.
He's got business ventures in South Bend. So so that's good for him. Michael, I want to say thank you for the kind words in the chat. We really appreciate it. We want to make the show engaging and fun for everybody who is on and is here with like a good attitude. You asked a question about a third running back. We're gonna have to get to that later. A, because we're kind of out of time on the show, and B, I don't think we have a lot of information on that. I wouldn't be shocked if they started looking at a third running back, though. So watch that space. We'll watch that. So, but we're going to end it there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll be back on Thursday. If you enjoyed this show, please subscribe to our channel. Please hit the like button. Please hit the notification bell soon whenever it is we are going live. Links to this podcast are going to be in the description below. Have a good rest of the day. Again, we're back Thursday. Keep hitting and hustling.